Hey, I'm Eric Randolph, and this is my problem set 4. So in this one, what we're doing is we're coding a game of words with friends, which is pretty much the computer will give us a list of random letters, and we're supposed to rearrange those letters and come up with as many words as possible. So to actually do this, we're given a bunch of helper code, and I've just downloaded these files. And in the helper code, a bunch of functions are already filled out, and we're told to fill out a couple more functions, which leads us to problem 1, which is the get word store with parameters of word and in function. So what this one's actually supposed to do is it's supposed to return the store for a word, and the store is calculated by the word you guess. Every letter in that word has a value. What you're going to do is you're going to add up all of those values and then multiply it by the length of the word, and that's your store. There's also a possibility to get extra points, 50 extra points to be exact, and that happens if every letter that's in your hand, you rearrange all of those letters and make one big word, and that's 50 extra points. So to actually do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a variable for the store, and right now it's going to be 0. And I need to add the value of every letter to the store. So to do that, I'm going to iterate through word. So I'm going to say for letter in word, and then I'm just going to add the value of the letter, and the value of the letter is held in Scrabble letter values. So it's going to be plus equals Scrabble letter values at location letter. So then now I can multiply that times the length of word to actually get the full amount of the points. And then now I have to cover the case for if I get the extra points or not. So I can just say if the length of the word equals n, because in this case n is going to be the hand size. If that's the case, extra is going to be 50, else extra is going to be 0. And then to close this one off, I'll just return the store plus the extra. So with that, we're actually also given equals and with that, we're also given a tester file. So I'm gonna run this, and then in the tester file, I can run this as well, and it should say success if I've done it right, and it does. So we can move on to problem 2. So in problem 2, it's update hand with parameters of hand and word. So what this one is we're supposed to assume that hand has all the letters in word. In other words, this assumes that however many times a letter appears in word, hand has at least the same number of letters in it. Update the hand uses the letters in the given word and returns the new hand without those letters in it. Has no side effects, does not modify hand. Word is a string and hand is a dictionary, and it's supposed to return the dictionary. So to actually do this doesn't seem tricky at all. I'm first going to make a copy of hand because it says it doesn't modify hand. So hand2 equals hand.copy, and hand2 is what I'm going to be modifying. So now what I need to do is in the dictionary, or I need to iterate through word, and then in the dictionary I need to remove one from every value of the word you guessed. So that's going to look like I'm going to iterate through word, and then in the dictionary at letter I'm going to subtract 1 from that value. And what that does is every time you guess a word, every letter in that word will be subtracted from hand 2. So with that should be it. So we just return hand 2, and then we can run it and make sure it works. So run the test file again, and it does. Okay. So now we can move on to problem 3, which is the word valid? And this has parameters of word, hand, and wordless, and this returns true if word is in the word list and is entirely composed of letters in the hand, otherwise returns false, and that does not mutate the hand or the word list. So, because it doesn't mutate it, again, I'm going to have hand2 equals copy of hand. And then I need to cover the case for if I guess a word that isn't real. So to do that, I'm just going to say if the word is not in word list. So if word not in word list, what I can just do is return that as false. Now I need to cover the case for if you guess a letter or a word that has a letter that's not in your hand. So to do that, I'm going to iterate through the word you guessed. So first for letter in word, and then if that letter is not in your hand, so if letter not in hand 2, return as false. Now I need an else statement for that, and this else statement is going to help to ensure that you can't use the same letter twice. So for example, if you had HELO as your hand, you couldn't enter a word as hello because you can't use that L twice. So I'm going to say else, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the update hand, and I'm just going to remove one from the letter value. So hand2 at letter equals, hand2 letter -1. Now I can have another if statement and say if hand2, if the letter value for that is less than 0, we can return it as false. So now, otherwise, for all of that, we can just return it as true. And that should be it for the is valid word. So again, we can test it by running this first, and then running this. And they're all successful, so that's good. And now we can move on to 4, which is playing a hand. Or problem 4 is calculating hand length. I don't know why it says playing a hand there. So this one is very simple. It just returns the length or the number of letters in the current hand. Hand is a dictionary, and then it returns an integer. So to do that, I'm going to make a variable for the length, and right now it's going to be set to 0. And then I'm going to iterate through hands, so for x in hand, and then I'm just going to add to length by x. So length plus equals hand of x. And then that should be it. This one was very simple. And then return the length. And there's no way to check that. It's pretty simple, though. I'm pretty confident it's right. So now we can move on to 5, which is to play the hand, which has parameters of hand, word list, and in. So this one also should be pretty simple. All it is we already have a bunch of comments, and we're just supposed to fill them in. But overall, the function allows the user to play the given hand as follows. The hand is displayed. The user may input a word or a single period, the string, and then the period, to indicate they're done playing. Invalid words are ejected, and a message is displayed asking the user to choose another word until they enter a valid word or a period. When a valid word is entered, it uses up letters from the hand. After every valid word, the score from that word is displayed. The remaining letters in the hand are displayed, and the user is asked to input another word. Sum of the word scores is displayed when the hand finishes. The hand finishes when there are no more unused letters, or the user inputs a period. Hand is a dictionary, word list is a list of lowercase strings, and then in is an integer, which is the hand size. So to actually do this, I'm going to first remove this because it tells me to. And now I need to keep track of the total score. So I'm going to make a variable for score and set it to 0. But I'm also going to make a variable called exit. And right now I'm going to set it to false. And this will be useful later to get out of the while loop that I'm going to make. So now what I can do is go down here. So as long as there are still letters in the hand, so I can call on the calculated hand length and make sure that's not 0. So I can say while the calculated hand length of hand isn't 0, and it's calculate hand length isn't 0, And then also I'm gonna put an extra thing and say and exit is false. I need to display the hand, so good thing I have a function called display hand right here. So I'm going to do display hand with parameter hand. Now I need to ask the user for an input. So I'm gonna first print off a line and say type a word, comma, or period to exit the code. Now I'm gonna say the word is the input. Now I need to see if the input is a single period. So if word equals period, I need to end the game, so I'm just gonna say exit equals true, and then it should end the while loop. Otherwise the input is not a single period, so just else. If the word is not valid, so I have an isValid word function already, so I can say if isValid word with word hand and word list. If that's false, because it returns true or false, I can reject invalid word, print a message followed by a blank line. So I can print invalid word and then followed by a blank line. And then now I need to say otherwise if the word is valid, so it's just an else statement. Tell the user how many points the word earned and the updated total store in one line followed by a blank line. So to do that I need to add to store, and I'm gonna add to store by the getWordStore function that I made. So store plus equals get word store word in. Then I'm gonna, just for formatting, print a line. Then I need to print out the points earned and the updated total. So I'm gonna say print, and I'm gonna also print off their word. So the word added that, and then I'm gonna put how many points the word added them. Points to your store, period. And then I'm gonna say total store, comma, and then I'm just gonna put store there. So now I need to update the hand. So again, I have a function called update hand. So hand equals update hand, and that has parameters of hand and word. So with that should be it for that one. Now I can move on to problem 5, and the problem that actually lets me play the game. So that's the function play game with parameter of word list. So to do this, it allows the user to play an arbitrary number of hands. So, and the two things it needs to do is ask the user to input N or R or E. So if the user inputs an N, it lets the user play a new random hand. If the user inputs an R, it lets the user play the last hand again. If the user inputs an E, it exits the game, and if the user inputs anything else, tell them that their input was invalid. So, and then 2, I need to make sure that when they're done playing the hand, repeat from step 1. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and initialize the hand because it's parameters for a lot of things, and I just need it. So hand, and it's gonna be an empty dictionary right now. Now I'm gonna have to get this repeating process done. I'm going to have a while loop and just say while true. So while true, and then now I need an input. I need the user to input an N, R, E. So I'm gonna say X is the input, enter in for a new hand, comma R to repeat hand, comma or an E to exit. Now I can say for the circumstance that the input is an in, I can say if the input is in, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna deal the hand, so I'm gonna give a value to hand, and then I'm gonna play the game. So to actually deal the hand, I have a function deal hand that was already made for me right here. So I'm going to hand equals deal hand, and then hand size. And hand size right now is set to 7, but what I can do is I can change that later when I'm testing to make sure it works for everything. But if it works for 7, I'm sure it'll work for everything, but I'll make sure. So once we have that, I can just play the game. So I can just do the function play hand with parameters of hand, word list, and then hand size. And that will play the game. Now I need to say else if the input is an R, and R is going to repeat everything. So else if the input is an R. And at first I was thinking that I should have something along the lines of in case that you pre-press R at the very beginning. So let's say you started the game and then you want to repeat a hand that wasn't even played to you. So I was at first thinking to say something along the lines of if hand is empty, print out something. But what I found through testing was that it doesn't actually need that. All you have to do is just play the previous hand, which should already be done by hand, word list, and hand size. So if I just type in play hand, word list, and then hand size, it'll work just fine. And even if you put an R in at the very beginning, nothing will happen, and it'll just ask you to input something else. But you'll see what I'm talking about when I actually run it. So now I need the final case for if the input is or not the final case. I need an else if statement for if the input is an E to exit the game. So else if the input is an E, we're just gonna print goodbye, and then we're gonna break the loop. And then now finally I need to see if an input is not in R or E. So to say that, I'm gonna say else if X is not in R or E, and I'm gonna print your input is invalid, and it should just restart after that. So now we should actually be able to play the game, and we can test everything right now by doing this. So the words are loaded. Enter in for a new hand, R to repeat hand, or E to exit. So I'm going to show you the R thing again. So if I click R, nothing happens, and it just asks me to re-enter something. So that's perfect. That's what I wanted. Now, if I type in an N, it's going to give me the list of letters, and then I need to type in a word or a period to exit the code. So right now, I'm going to think of a word. Sap. So it adds 15 points. And then now I'm going to click period. It's going to exit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the hand, and it should still be the same letters. So yeah, it's the same letters. And then again, I'm just going to exit the code. So we know that everything there works. So now we can move on to problem 7. And problem 7 is moving over to PS4B. And what this is it's a bunch of code to make the computer play the game for you. And what we're trying to do is we're going to allow the user to play an arbitrary number of hands, but we're going to see if we want to play or we want the computer to play. So to do that, we need to make sure to ask the user for input in R or E. If the user inputs an E, immediately exit the game. If the user inputs anything that's not in R or E, keep asking them again. I need to ask the user to input a U or a C. If the user inputs anything that's not a C or a U, keep asking them again.